Hey Chris, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast Debug with the Monk. And to just let my audience know, and I'll pass it on to you to introduce you further. Just from my perspective, I'm very excited to welcome Chris. He's coming with 30 years of experience and holds MVP title for customer service. You rarely see a person who has seen the complete arc of contact center from Microsoft Lync to USD to omnichannel to CCaaS. So it will be really lovely conversation, and we'll try to debug a little bit more into CCaaS. Hi, Chris.
Sure. Hi. Yeah, thanks for inviting me on. And I'm a little bit unusual in that, and there's some people like me out there, and I've started a little club actually on LinkedIn called the Legacy Voice Engineers Club, because it's just apparent there are some of us who've been around for a while. So my background is in voice and data infrastructure. So I was really lucky when I was younger that I just happened to get a job. I had a load of computer skills from being young, and a temporary job turned into an opportunity in engineering, telecommunications engineering. And I ended up an Ericsson AXE10 engineer and also trained on transmission systems. And I loved it. It was great. It was just the best thing ever for me because it combined programming with kind of the logic and also the physical tactileness of electronics and PCBs and stuff. And I did that and loved it, and built the network in the Southwest with some very clever people as well. Most of them a bit older than me at the time. I was in my 20s. But I went and did the same in Germany, and I ran a voice network over there for a company called SNT Multiconnect, and with some really clever people from all over Europe, a very multicultural company, about 100 people. I was the only British person there, and spoke some reasonable German, although that's debatable, I think, and was looking after a transit network for voice and transmission across Europe. But I came back to the UK, and I needed a job because my first daughter arrived in the world, and my wife was freelance. She's a really talented illustrator, animator, now teacher. And rather than both of us work for ourselves, I thought I'd get a job. And there was a company local to me in the Southwest where I am, who were a Microsoft partner. And they didn't really know what to do with me because I had all these legacy skills, or it wasn't legacy at the time, but all these infrastructure skills and project management and commercial kind of savvy. And anyway, they gave me a job. And that was, I'll name drop it, it's a company called Nexus Open Systems Limited. And they're in Exeter, they're still going, and they were a small systems integrator. But I walked through the door just as Lync hit. And OCS had been around, Lync 2010. And of course, it was really interesting for me because I come from this voice background. So I had all this understanding of connectivity and Q931 and DAS, which are protocols in the UK, and C7 signaling and everything. But this was new. But I'd actually worked on some of the first essentially multimedia over IP platforms in the UK, which were built with Nortel technology. And so it made sense to me because we'd already had it, but it wasn't a packaged product, so to speak. It was infrastructure with a GUI, and yeah, we could make calls and do conference calls in video and share and text and stuff like that. And then I looked at Lync and just went, well, I like this. What's this all about? And there weren't many partners back in that time that started to work with it. And I can't take any credit for it because there were a couple of people at Nexus who just threw themselves into it. So session border controller from Audio Codes and from Ribbon at the time, which is now Sonos, and they labbed it and they started playing with it. And it was really a bit of a side quest kind of project for them. But we liked it. And so right from the start, as we started to see the product come out, we were also dialed in with all the vendors in terms of headsets, handsets, and so on, all of that stuff. And I kind of did a commercial role and a technical role. So I wasn't on the tools, but I was dialed right into it. And I worked closely with Audio Codes, amazing company, love them to bits. A lot of affinity with them. Yeah, so doing clever stuff with it and trying to position it in the marketplace, which was a challenge at the time. But we had some customers in the Southwest and across UK who were interested because they were Microsoft-Centric and they were interested in what the potential was. So that was how I started. And then I've been on that journey through and focused in on it, even though across the stack I've got expertise commercially and technical wise with other things like security and just SaaS generally. I found it really interesting and honed down on it. So Lync to Skype for business, to Teams, and to where we are today with phone system and also with certified contact centers. 3 years ago, we started, where I work now is Cignity, and we're like partner of the year for Convergence at the moment with Microsoft, which is pretty amazing considering we're a small partner. And the reason is we're really good at what we do. We were seeing challenges in the marketplace with some of the third-party CCaaS solutions in that some of them are developed quite well, and we work with Luware, a Swiss company, and they produce a certified contact center based on the extender model now, Nimbus, which is great. And I've worked with them for about 13 years since that initial kind of Lync Skype days. And their product has just evolved and been built to high quality over that time. And that's been great. But for certain customers in the marketplace, and it can be of any size, medium, large enterprise, is perhaps that wasn't the right fit and we needed something else. And since the COVID time, since the pandemic, moving everyone to phone system, moving everyone to SaaS for contact center, we've been really busy, and I'm sure lots of your audience have been busy as well, and trying to do the best by them with the best solution at the time that we could do, remotely. But I've always felt, and I've always said to myself, aren't Microsoft doing a contact center? Why is that the case? Surely they're going to make a contact center. But the ecosystem of certified contact centers is around about 30, something like that. And there's been a lot of shifts in it, new entrants into the market. Some have dropped away. Some have been consolidated and bought by others. And you can't, as a partner or as a consultant, know all of them. It's quite difficult. And I'd say if you know 3 or 4, you've done pretty well. I'd say if you know 1 or 2, you're probably going to be an expert in them. So I thought, well, when is the contact center going to arrive? And Microsoft brought out a framework architecture. So this journey from kind of customer service, like the CRM product, if you map it all the way through, I did a visual on this, like a roadmap for myself. And there's a lot of steps there to get to where we are today with Microsoft. So they got a wealth of history and experience in delivering quality customer service. But the digital contact center platform, DCCP, caught my eye. Not right at the start, so we weren't a partner that was involved. There were some of the global systems integrators, the GSIs, who were obviously working with them, the likes of Avaya and Accenture. Yeah, we punched pretty hard and were involved in lots of programs, but that wasn't one that we knew about. However, we jumped into it and we started to look at the bits of the architecture and how it was being connected together. And we started to build our own contact center using that, because that's what it was. It was a toolkit to be able to produce a solution that was skewed towards a customer's situation, and it had all the right bits, there. So that was interesting, and we decided to go to market with that. So we were getting close to launching an offering, so a wrapped service, from pre-sales to go live, and then adoption, and so on and so forth, and an ongoing support service, how that looked. But I thought, I know most people, and I'm not the only one here at Cignity, we know lots of people in modern work. We come from a modern work background of collaboration and UC. So meeting rooms, phone system, that's what we do. Adoption and change management for that, and contact center. So everyone really that's key to us in the UK and Europe, we know. However, this product was coming out of business applications, and we didn't know anything about business applications, nothing, apart from what the products were. And Dynamics was a scary phrase, mentioned every now and again. What's that? Well, we're not interested in Dynamics. That's for other people to do. So I connected with the head of the UK for business applications. And I was a bit worried as to how that conversation would go, because we weren't in his wheelhouse. We were just a modern work partner. However, that conversation was pivotal, in terms of for the business where I work, and then also for me personally, and the journey for the last 3 years. So the conversation was very open, not transparent in terms of telling me top secret stuff, but certainly listening to who we were and what skills we had as a modern work partner. And he recognized that we were the right kind of partner to work with a solution. On this side, we had business applications partners, and this side we have modern work partners. And those worlds have collided now, well and truly. We'll come on to talk about that. But phone systems, CCaaS, kind of building things as we got into with Copilot Studio, the agent build, like made sense. And consulting as well, not just box shifting and selling the license for a platform, but actually consulting on customer service and CX, meant that we had a lot of experience, and people I work with here like have got just as much experience as me. So the conversation went on for 2-3 months, and we were getting ready, productized with our offering, thinking, well, this is going to be interesting, and we don't know where it's going to take us. We'll see if the market responds. You know, customers we were talking to, our existing customers and some prospects, certainly were interested, but obviously it would have been new for them. And then we got to round about May, early June, and I had a catch up with this head of business apps, Rob Smithson, and he didn't say anything in particular. I don't want to get him into trouble because there's an NDA in place anyway. But it was more, there's something coming in July, Chris, that you're going to find interesting, was almost the words that he said. And it was left as that. 1st of July. And the start of a new FY for Microsoft. Everything's going on like we've got now with kind of MCAPs, and we've got all the partner incentives for the year. So if you're involved in Alliance, which I am, and an SME, then you're looking at what's new for this year. The account sellers and managers at Microsoft, where's their focus? And again, we could talk again about what's going on this year. But in that year, the 1st of July, I was looking at announcements, and sure enough, Dynamics 365 Contact Center came out, and general availability. And so we weren't like a behind the scenes partner for it. There were some launch partners, which were from the audience of global systems integrators that we all kind of know, really, without naming them all. But we were already aligned with the solution just through sheer fluke, I suppose, through luck, good luck. And the product was made from the things we'd been making things with. And the clever guys who work here in like solution architecture and systems engineers, and the modern work director at the time as well. So we knew the product, and so straight away we jumped on board in terms of just amplifying what we were talking about. And for me personally, I've been on LinkedIn for quite a while, and back in the early days, you'll remember, it was like a place to find a job. And that was kind of all it was. It was just people trying to poach people from other businesses. So employers didn't like it particularly if you were on it. It's changed tremendously now. And I don't use any other social media platforms because I don't want to. And I only use LinkedIn for work and for personal pleasure, I suppose. I'd been connecting with lots of people and talking about things, but in a very salesy way years ago, trying to promote a product. And I think most of us, you had this phase of people on LinkedIn trying to sell, and they're still doing it, okay, and that's still a valid platform. But I wanted to talk about something. And when I talked about myself occasionally, and I do talk about myself, so I suffer with anxiety and depression. I talk really openly about that, more so now than I ever have done. But so from that to everyone is one thing. But technology-wise, I just started talking about the product, and it was really just based on what I knew from CCaaS and what I knew from legacy voice. From that perspective, the commercial part of me, 50%, what was going on in the marketplace, the technical side of me looking at, is it a good product? Where's the fit? What's the roadmap? How is it not feature function parity though? Not looking at it from a perspective of, is it going to beat NICE and Genesys and 8x8 and Mitel and whatever? It wasn't that. It was more just, well, this is really interesting. So since then, I wouldn't say I'm obsessed. It's not an obsession. Maybe it is an obsession. Marcus Schmidt at Microsoft would probably agree that I'm a little bit kind of like obsessed with the product. I just talked about this product, and as a result, my kind of profile, for want of a better word, just grew. Probably about 15,000 people over 3 years through natural people following, and then also through me looking for the right people. And so looking for business applications people, looking for CRM people, CS people, CX people, and connecting with them across the whole industry and other vendors as well to see what they're talking about. And on the day or after GA, I set up a LinkedIn group. So I've got my Legacy Voice Engineers Club, which is a bit of fun. But I set up the Dynamics 365 Contact Center professionals group, and there's about, if I have a look now whilst I'm talking to you, there's about 2,500 people in that group now, and I distill and share content. No, it's not quite. 2,201. There we go. 2,500 will be the next milestone to celebrate. And that's a mix of people from Microsoft and from systems integrators and consultants who are self-employed and from customers. I acted as a bit of a channel for disseminating information for Microsoft. So whilst their go-to-market was getting up to speed, I was like an extension of the go-to-market team, so to speak. And it's very dialed in now with people who are in that CCaaS go-to-market. And Marcus Schmidt's very senior in that group. And Alan Ross, VP for Customer Service AI, is at the head of that. So they took a little while to catch up. In the meantime, I backfilled for them and just shared content and took seemingly maybe complex things, but distilled them and also produced a range of visuals, handcrafted, not using Copilot. I am using Copilot, obviously, but still some of the visuals and that, I took kind of pride and time in producing them. It's been since then, since the launch, it's just been super interesting. And it is super interesting. And the next phase will be even more interesting. And I think there's a wealth of opportunity for other partners in this space. And I know you approached me to talk about kind of my background and also, for your audience to understand that. And I genuinely think that this product and this area is going to see massive growth. And there will be opportunities for partners. There will be opportunities for consultants. Most importantly, there will be a transformation in customer service that we have all been waiting for. And Microsoft, with other technology partners as well doing their thing, will make a big impact. I'm only interested in Microsoft. I'm not interested in other vendors. So I'm slightly skewed, but I am absolutely aware that there are other technologies available.
Absolutely. I think there is a plenty of questions that are coming to my mind because you have touched upon almost 4 of my questions in one shot, right? So
I'm sorry.
It is really amazing. We have cut through and we have more things now we can actually ponder upon. One thing that I personally feel is that moving from USD to omnichannel to CCaaS, one of the fear that Microsoft product team has pulled is connecting ACS and the product and bringing it under this 360 degree of customer service and engagement, right? I think that is a brilliant feat that they have pulled through. But the analysis and study that we have been doing over CCaaS for some time points us that Avaya and Genesys of the world still controls majority of the enterprise contact centers, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts around that? I understand that you are primarily focused on Microsoft, and so do all of us who are associated with Microsoft. We are fan of MS. But what do you think is a gap that contact center is filling up that Avaya Genesys may or may not be catering to?
So obviously selling the third-party contact centers is, there's been a compete always. So trying to sell Luware versus in a bidding situation or in just a 3-horse race, 3 proposals to a customer, maybe in the public sector or maybe not. There would always have been something else in the mix, whether it was Genesys or Mitel or Avaya. And typically those as well as NICE, actually. Those would have been the most common solutions that you would go up against. Why would we win back then, really? Why did we win? So I think because those customers, we were probably moving them to Teams Enterprise Voice, or we'd already moved them, and they had something else that we connected into for CCaaS, or there was no connection with the CCaaS, but they were interested in kind of collaboration and integration. So, and that's absolutely possible with the third-party certified products. So why something different to that? And the evolution of Genesys and NICE and Mitel and Avaya, again, they've not stood still. They've moved forward. They've got their own agentic play, haven't they? They've also got big install bases. So Microsoft, almost late to the party, are they? Well, they've got a wealth of history, as I've said, in customer service. And you can't shy away from that. And there's been a couple of people from other vendors kind of challenge that. And I've just given my opinion on it. And I think they have absolutely a history in delivering customer service with platforms. And as you described, the unification of those technologies and what we have now today has meant we have this 360-degree view, and we have agentic plugged in through Copilot. And we have lots of good things in the product like workforce management as well. But why Microsoft today? Why is a customer going to show interest? So from my experience of consulting and working with customers, it's predominantly when a customer is Microsoft-centric. So if they are already invested in the Microsoft stack. Now, a large range of them are using N65, and other products, Power BI, Power Platform, Dynamics, as well. Maybe those CTOs, those CEOs, CFOs, maybe they're long-standing relationships with the other vendors, and it seems like a huge shift to move platforms, and they're familiar with what they know, and that's fine. And they will still accelerate and improve customer service with the vendor they're working with. But for those that maybe aren't that happy, haven't had that greater experience, and maybe the roadmap and what's happened with the product doesn't align with their business strategy and the outcomes they want for their customers, can they achieve what they want for their customers? If they can't, and it's a challenge, then maybe they're looking elsewhere. But in these first 2 years, it's been where customers have got Dynamics 365 customer service already, then with the licensing, without going into loads of detail, they can have an add-on license, essentially, to add in the contact center, either digital or voice. They could go for a bundled license, which is customer service premium, where they get contact center and they get the CRM. And it's adaptable in terms of who in the company wants what. We're not talking about concurrent channels anymore or anything like that. So just a license, and then consumption. That's worth also mentioning in terms of, kind of Copilot. So customers who are already Microsoft-centric with Enterprise Voice or thinking of switching on Enterprise Voice, we often have a phone system Dynamics play, and in combination, or sometimes phase 1 for phone system, phase 2 for contact center. Those are the really strong conversations. I think there was probably an expectation of displacing Salesforce in some manner, and that is still possible as a play. We're not a customer service partner. We are a contact center partner. So we work with other Dynamics partners where they've got opportunities and so on and so forth. We are we're phone system. But I think for organizations to displace a CRM, it's a bigger challenge than just the CCaaS, or not just the CCaaS, but the CCaaS bit, the contact center bit. A contact center, Dynamics 365 contact center can, through Open API, connect to other data sources and knowledge bases and so on and so forth. It has dedicated connectors for Salesforce, etc. But those customers have shown the most interest. The other type of customer who's shown interest as well has been those who like to do new stuff. So back in the days of Lync, there were those trailblazing customers who would just say, what's that? That's interesting. How do we do that? Explain that to us. What do we get from that? And almost whether it's through proof of concept or a trial or a small deployment, just have a go, so to speak. There's plenty of, I think the landscape is I was at an event called Cavell, CX Summit, like about 3 weeks ago, and the customer service marketplace, like for CCaaS globally, is just going to like ramp right up, like huge increase, because it's one area really of the stack and for organizations that they've not been able to get right. And now in this kind of more modern SaaS kind of era we're in, and particularly then obviously the agentic stuff, then they can transform that without a whole massive technical learning and onboarding, either for the partner or for the customer. So yeah, it's I think there's lots of opportunity. I think the marketplace will see some kind of fluidity in terms of people moving. The hyperscalers, though, are doing well. By hyperscalers, I mean, Google and Amazon. They're doing well. And then, the likes of Genesys, etc., Mitel are doing really well. And Microsoft are gradually eating into that little bit of the pie, really. So
I think it's a great way to start the discussion, which is Microsoft being late to the party, as always. But
I shouldn't have said that, should I?
No, I for one completely agree, and I think a lot of people within Microsoft might agree with the statement. But the reason could be very simple, because if some product comes out of Microsoft, it has to be well tested. It has to cater to a lot of audience. They cannot just deliver half cooked or half baked product. It's very difficult. But you mentioned that as a contact center, we can still have Salesforce on the other side, which is managing the services. For example, these conversations that are coming in, etc. And I've been reading this news. Salesforce itself has an Agentforce contact center, and they have plugged in a lot of agents, and they have invested a huge amount for some time now. I think the advantage, to my mind, as Microsoft advocate, always comes with the ecosystem, around it, right? And then that really helps club that 365-degree view or 360-degree view that you can basically use in AI and spin up your agents that can perform much more thorough tasks done, right? So let's be very honest about this, right? Do you think Microsoft Contact Center in its current state, right, which we are all very fan of, right, at this point in time, right, because they have brought in this product, it has been long awaited, but in its current shape, can it cater to enterprises like Hewlett Packard, which has like maybe 100,000 plus agents across the globe? Or is it still on a maturing curve where we are looking at medium segments, which maybe 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 users? What is your opinion around that piece?
If we'd had this conversation a year ago, then I would have probably said that kind of global, multi-site, multi-country, multi-language contact centers would have been a challenge. And it's not that the intentions weren't there and the functionality wasn't there. It's just seen such a rapid development phase for the last year. Well, those first 2 years, really. The release planner, so people who are familiar with Dynamics will know we get release waves twice a year, and then an iterative process then of those features and functions kind of coming out. Some of it based on market desire, some of it based on kind of people in Microsoft, some of it based on partners feeding back into the products. And I imagine, I know from Phone System and Teams, that's the case. And I suspect it's across most of Microsoft's products, the way they develop. I've never seen such an acceleration of development with a product. Now, the reason being not feature function parity, really. Mindful of that, I think, but trying to achieve something that's not necessarily massively different, but is just dialed into the Microsoft stack. And we talk about being able to leverage data then. With the Microsoft product, you lift everything built on Azure, you lift everything from the Dataverse. So all of that wealth of information in terms of customers and your organization is just leveraged there. Then we layer on Copilot and we can draw that up. And then we've got things like Copilot Studio as well, where we can build agents. So a year ago, that first year, you would say that a global organization, and there were large brands that, had already been working with Microsoft and partners as well, some of the GSIs, and they stepped into contact center. So they were some of the first success stories that we heard about at launch, and there were a few of them. Not many. And then since then, we've probably seen more activity in the medium-large organisations, I would say. So anything really from like 100 seat through to 1,000 seat, I would say. But the last year now, as want of a better phrase, step change, is the product is not stability because it's a stable product. You know, the architecture it's built on means that we're not seeing outages. It's the glue now for everything is just much tighter, and that added kind of vision of how to truly modernize customer service and the automation. And, you know, it's taken Microsoft a while to understand, I think, how to go to market with it. It then takes a partner time, and then it takes time for the customer to understand, like, what we're talking to them about and why it's different and what the benefits are. And the shift in the way that I've thought about it and talking about it has been really around looking at personas and outcomes, which again, we could talk about for like an hour. But instead of the feature function, it's really now, what is the challenge for Hewlett-Packard? Really, what are they not seeing? What is not working? What do the personas in CS, CX environment, what are the jobs that they do, and how do we make those better? So we fast forward to now. And why is the product going to make a difference in the next 12 months? What are we going to see? Well, I don't have a crystal ball. I have an NDA in place, and I don't know everything. I'm as close to Microsoft as I can possibly be. But if we think about what was announced recently around Copilot, Cowork, and autopilots and Scout. So Omar Shaheen, who's he's the CVP, I'm just looking, CVP for Microsoft OpenClaw M365. I listened to a really interesting podcast that he was on as to the origin story. I'm sharing it later on today on LinkedIn. And autopilots, what does that mean? So yeah, autonomously, not autonomous agents that we set off on a task and then they do it. It's something that can just work for us all the time. And Alan Ross, who's, I said, VP customer service, you know, he posted something and I was asking really like, what's the next thing, Alan? And he's not going to tell me in an open forum like that. But he said, well, what do you think is the next thing, Chris? Now, logically for me, autopilots are. So Scout's the first one, and it's being used in anger at the moment, you know, from internal use by about 10,000 people at Microsoft, then lots of different use cases for just how they use it in their day-to-day job. So think about those completely autonomous agents that we set up to do part of our job in customer service. So that's got to be something that's going to come. It's got to be something. Like if it's not coming this year, it's coming sometime. And also, I think even more tighter integration of CS and CCaaS. Like it's one really. In terms of a solution sell, or for the customer's perspective, they're going, we need a CRM, we need a contact center. Probably not. Actually, it's just CX, CS. And so that merges together. And the other thing, which has already started happening, I talked about doing phone system and CCaaS, is the UCaaS, the CCaaS play, like over time, that's just got to blend so that it's just one. And there will be customers who want disparate systems. They'll want something from Microsoft, something from Avaya, Mitel, and vice versa, just because of their appetite maybe for not going with one complete vendor. But I think we'll see, in the CCaaS space generally, I think we'll see consolidation and rationalization of solutions, you know, less people in that arena and ones that succeed. I truly believe, although I'm biased, but I really think that Microsoft will succeed. You know, there's been various products that have come out that have been questioned, and then you look at where they are today and what they've achieved with them. This is that for me anyway.
See, Microsoft partners in our community, the people that I'm talking to, are quite bullish on contact center at this moment, because till now we had a product which was omni-channel, which was part of similar deal, but with this rebranding and bringing in some additional pieces, right, it really opens up the game for the partners to go and co-sell.
Yeah.
Market. My question is, there is a growing trend right now whether it is US, UK, or even in India, right? For the companies who don't really want to invest a lot on creating their agents and help desks, etc., they are going with automated bots,
Yeah,
which reads from a predefined script, take your
sure.
input, and then respond
Hmm.
back, right? Somewhere, do you think that is the future, or agents are going to, the human agents are going to stay? Because
Mm,
I don't know about US and UK at the moment,
yeah,
but in India, we tend to like to speak to a human voice, not just human voice, but who responds back with empathy and emotions. And then, because
yeah,
most
yeah,
of the people are calling when they're pissed off. Otherwise, nobody wants to
yeah.
pick up the call and call, right?
No,
What do you think? Is it a natural market for that in
yeah.
Europe?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, and the reason this product made sense to me was you've got deflection, so the ability to grab information digitally or through voice initially. So, and the quality of that is much better than it was 3 years ago,
True.
5 years ago, 12 months ago. It's better. So to be able to capture things through voice IVR or digital, through web chat and a bot, really, building those in Copilot Studio to be able to just draw down information from a customer, so that information is relayed to the human agent, and also the customer gets through. They've done something already. They've not waited in the queue. Basically, we all hate that. We all hate waiting half an hour, 45 minutes. I can remember when there was problems like with British Airways, and it was really difficult. I was going out to Seattle. There was a fire at Heathrow, London Heathrow, and it caused loads of problems. And trying to get hold of British Airways was really difficult. It was pretty good. I don't want to say that it was poor. At that time, in the maturity of kind of CCaaS, it was as good as it was going to be. And it coped. But we all hate waiting, and we all want that human touch. Actually, there's a time when I was thinking about more automation and I was worried about loss of jobs. And it's not that. And I'm not drinking Kool-Aid here. It's just that I think these platforms actually give better power back to the human agent. They should do. And they should also fundamentally deliver better customer service. So automation of things is one thing, and the surfacing of information, the translation, transcription, injection into CRM, great. Okay, that's all fine. But when things don't go right, when sentiment analysis shows that someone's not happy and they want escalation, not even escalation, they just want to be shifted channel to a voice agent, a human voice agent, then that needs to happen seamlessly. But what we do get is the context from the first point of contact through whichever channel it is comes through. And that's something we never had. It was always disparate, and it was always repeat. I hate repeating myself because it's a waste of time. And that is where frustration comes in. Even if it's just the second time, when you've gone from a bot to the human agent and you have to explain the problem again, you're already not happy. So that bit kind of goes away. But then why do we want to speak to a human? Because we just do. And also because it's maybe too complex. Although complexity with AI can be handled now, but they're definitely, so we're giving some time back to the human agent by that data gathering bit initially. The problem, the query, the why we're pissed off goes away. So they hopefully have some more time to be sympathetic, to have empathy with the customer who's calling, and spend time with them instead of being rushed and just looking at KPIs to close calls down based on them then, not satisfying the customer, and the CSAT's poor and the customer phones up again. So I really hope it does transform customer service for the customer, but also for those human agents. And actually, what's the opportunity there for those humans? That's really important. So automation, AI, the robots are taking over. Well, hopefully not. I hope not. And in customer service, there's a chance for people to pivot a little bit as well. So we talk about agents and autonomous agents, and I'm mentioning autopilots and Scout and stuff. So in the future, you will have agents, AI agents working. They're already doing it now. But you could, in your job or as a supervisor, you could be managing those. That's a pivot. it's still delivering customer service. So supervisors, service leaders, or even human agents could have agents working for themselves to do certain things. And that could be in a business that's small, 25 agents, right through to the tens of thousands. But I think, there's been this situation where humans aren't talking to humans. The younger generation coming through, like my daughters who are 15 and 18, there's been this disconnect socially because of the pandemic, and really challenging for them to come out of it, but actually really challenging for all of us to come out of it. And some of us are still not out of it. And, socializing and meeting face to face, voice to voice, really, rather than just Teams calls all the time. I think sometimes it's important that we are speaking to each other. That is fundamentally important for social well-being, I think. And therefore, I think for organisations, if they've got the attitude of looking at the bottom line of just reducing headcount, that's the wrong reason, really, to look at and engage with this technology.
I completely agree with you, and I think it's just never, it's always shades of grey in terms of how you implement a new tech. So what we are trying to agree on is you have now an option, which is IVR, which can speak more intelligently. Of course, I hate outbound calls going out and then pestering people, but that is where they give a list of 1,000 people to call, and then these robots are calling you. But I think that is one aspect of the industry that is anyways going to be there. That's how you traditionally do sales currently. But the second portion is you have are assisting humans to do a much better job, and you don't have to do ask customers again and again the same thing, right? So you are captured the context, and within that context you can search for the knowledge articles. So when the call lands to a human, he or she is just ready to give the right answer.
They're empowered.
So I think this is very good. One of the feature, before I actually dive deeper into one of the aspect, which is for example, if I am a small or medium industry or a large scale enterprise, and I am as a CTO trying to decide now this is going to be my new contact center solution, how do I prepare for that transformation? And how do I ensure that I don't go wrong in that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think, as you heard me describe, then the consultative approach. So I think it's really important that you find a good partner. Right, it's really important. And I'm not saying that for people to work with Cignity. I'm just saying that generally, because the technology is moving so quick, the rapid pace of change we're seeing now is just phenomenal. Never as fast as I've known it in, 53 years on this planet. It's astonishing. And there's a challenge there for all of us to keep up with technology, whether we work in the sector or whether we don't. But if you do work in the sector, then having specialisms in certain areas like CCaaS is going to be important, because we are the gatekeepers to help those organisations. Where those organisations are at scale and they've got technical teams, it may be that they decide, rightly or wrongly, that they will do things themselves, and that's the reason they have internal technology teams, and they'll align with a vendor. But the majority of organisations have all of their other challenges, whatever they are. Customer service and CX is just part of it. And it's not even, these platforms aren't just CX and CS. They're any part of the business where there's customer contact, or there's just human-to-human contact going on. Then there's the potential then through automation and AI to make that better. So I would say that organisations need to find a good partner. Now that goes for any vendor that you work with. And that relationship, we talk about trusted partners, and that's a phrase I like and hate as well. But it is true. You need to find someone that you can work with, that you relate to, that's has similar values, that understands your business as you describe it, but listens to you as well. That's really important, the listening bit, I think. And having that consultative approach to listen to what the challenges are. So challenges and pain points have always been one thing. Like, what's wrong? What's wrong with your existing? That's what we've been saying. But then we've just gone, well, we'll sell you this, because that's got that feature and that feature. And like I say, feature function parity is gone now. It's more about the impact to the business, the impact to the customer, and the outcomes for that customer and the outcomes for the business. And then back to like the personas and in people's roles, what are their challenges? Not just the overall contact center. What does the service leader feel? What does the team manager feel? What does the supervisor feel? What do the actual human agents? What does HR? What are the challenges for them? And as a back office, some CCaaS, like what are they going to be doing? Is there going to be an offload from frontline to another part of the business? And so therefore, it's not just CCaaS anymore. It's more consultative. It's more understanding clients and business operations. So like a business analyst, really. So that has to be like 25%, if not more, of how you think and operate. Understanding the technology is one thing, but then understanding businesses and how work flows is really important.
True.
So already we're kind of talking about things that maybe traditionally, you wouldn't in your day-to-day role have been doing. Maybe you are a CCaaS solution engineer or a consultant or a salesperson or whatever, and this is a change. Yes, it is. Is it achievable? Can you learn? And yeah, you can. Like, if I can, anybody can. If you've got the desire to learn, and immersing yourself in the subject is the way to go. And reading about it, not just from me, but reading about it from industry experts and things in the press. There's ways and means of just generally grasping what is going on. There's so much information about AI. It's
think you
really
raised
difficult.
a very good point, Chris, there. Sorry to interject you, but
That's all right.
how I think we all are looking at it at this point in time is the business use cases to be simplified. Basically, like to give a recent case study that we helped implement, and what's happening is with Copilot Studio or Copilot bots and with low code, no code, you can devise a bot. That's not a problem. You can research, do some sort of a learning and training, and then you can devise a bot. That's not a problem. But what generally happens, what we have seen in a couple of misimplementations, was that customers' business process before this contact center was something more complex. Like, for example, the call has to go to a external boiler agency if the heater is not working, right?
Sure.
And then there are other scenarios where they have in-house plumbers, in-house asset managers. So the entire workflow was complicated in this low-code, no-code bot creation, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when we try to look at holistically from business standpoint, we figured out that it may not need these many loops. It can just be done in just 3 plain steps, right?
Yes.
And that is where I think it really makes sense that you have a trusted partner who can create such processes for you, interview you, and then create the processes. And maybe at the end of the day, once it's implemented, maybe hand over the system to you if you want to manage it internally, which makes sense. No code, no code. So as a CTO, I think one of the things that comes to mind, a question maybe that I'd like to ask you is that, of course, and we have answered it in depth. So I may be on the verge of repeating that question, but as a CTO, as part of my platform, why should I choose Microsoft Contact Center? I think that could be the first question that you should potentially ask. And then what kind of business processes or KPI or CSAT, as you mentioned, right? Is there any other KPIs that you think as a CTO or as a CXO you should think about before implementing? Could it be reports, some sort of a leadership management where they can do some sort of actions based on how the calls they are receiving?
Yeah, I mean, kind of the traditional KPIs around sort of average handling time and those kind of things are really kind of blown away now. And I suppose that's a re-education for people working in contact centers, the partners, but also then the service leaders, and then beyond that, the management, CTO, C-suite, who are like looking at the performance of that part of the business. Really, as I said, it's about outcomes. Really, it's like, are the customers happy? Fundamentally, isn't it? Also, in any kind of contact center, there's a return on investment in TCO. It's like, are we driving more business? Have we driven more sales through it? So by having good customer service, is the customer spending more with us? So there is for certain industries anyway that, satisfaction in things like public sector, is really important, where citizens are trying to get hold of local, regional government or central government organisations. And that's always been a challenge, isn't it? So thinking about, without getting into the nitty gritty of stats, but just ultimately like how are the human agents performing? How are the agents actually performing? Is Copilot usage, good? And when people are using Copilot as an assistant, what's the impact? Is it, do they see an improvement? And those agents, human agents who aren't using the generative AI and kind of, or even the bots that are built, like what's their customer service kind of performance? And that's not with a view to kind of, challenging them on them not doing a good job. I think, again, this could be in any platform. It's really those tools are there nowadays to help them and to make their job easier. And like you said, surfacing of things like knowledge bases and actual answers, saves a lot of time and means they deliver better customer service. And those who are going to find it difficult, whether it's from the agent through to the C-suite, to understand it, partners need to help them understand that journey. You're absolutely right with the kind of workflow thing is, I hate another phrase that I hate is lift and shift.
Yeah.
I hate it.
There's nothing
Let's
like
just
lift and shift ever, right?
lift and shift. Oh my goodness. Do not say that ever. And maybe that phrase isn't used like all the time, but the sentiment is still there of, can you please just take what we do now and put it into the new platform? And that is the conversation that we've had many times of they don't want complexity, they don't want change. They want to move away from their existing platform purely because it's end of life or the renewal for the licensing is up and they can save money with what they go to, whether that's Microsoft or not, third party certified, or it's the Dynamics play, depending on their investment and so on and so forth, and the commercials behind it all. But I hate that with a vengeance, and people here also. It's a question of sometimes, though, customers aren't in a mature enough state with customer service anyway to transform it. So therefore, it's the simpler that we do in phase one. But even phase one, it would be crazy not to have Copilot assisting agents. You could switch it off, you could not have it. But why would you not have it? But maybe, I don't know, maybe the IVR is non-complex. Maybe an advanced thing would be things like workforce management, isn't it? And WEM, workforce engagement management, in the platform. But doing introducing lots of omnichannel when they only had voice and email.
True.
That doesn't make sense. Let's move the voice, let's move the email, let's add digital in this area on the website, or whatever, on an internal facing support platform or something, and add value straight away, because otherwise what was the point? And then maybe there is a phase two, and then there's always an iterative quarterly support thing, because the product's going to constantly change and the partner needs to be close to the customer and needs to be close to the solution. So those three now get pulled together, like whether you have you're a managed Microsoft partner or not, whatever relationship you have with Microsoft now becomes really important in terms of supporting your customer. So both from you learning and keeping up to date with the products and working with sellers and people who've got customers and opportunities, but also being able to filter that down to the customer. And so like being really close together between customer and partner, particularly in this play, maybe we deployed phone system and then we never spoke to the customer again because it just worked, and they've got a support contract that they just pay every year. This is not that. This is far more about, again, human to human relationship of finding this company, we like them. Why do we like them? We like them because they're talking in our language, they understand how we operate, and they understand the challenges that we have. Like genuinely, not just read some blurb, or read a tender and then go, we'll sell them this and we'll make it the cheapest possible. So we win that business. But I think the days of selling in that way are gone. And the channel itself, the managed service providers, the MSPs, more so than the systems integrators, I think they're going to find it quite challenging in this particular space. So, yeah.
No, I think I really love the concept of the technical implementers coming in and understanding business and driving certain decisions that leads to business transformations. I think that is the best that can happen. Like, for example, you rightly mentioned that the CSAT, the meaning of that is changing now, right? It's not
Yeah.
just AI. It's also about keeping your customer happy at the end of the day, right? So from leadership standpoint, you'll not try to enforce that, okay, agent has to close the call in a minute or 30 seconds, gone are those days. At the end of the day, customer is only going to stay if he's or she is satisfied. Pretty interesting, Chris. So I think let's move on. I think we, just to summarize before we move on from CCaaS discussion at this point in time, is what we understood is if you are a service leader or a CXO or a CTO, if you're planning your next bet on contact center, Microsoft comes with all the avenues where you can invest, and then it gives you a surrounding ecosystem where you can actually do much more than just contact center, right? Enrichment of cases, knowledge article, and whatnot. We also try to go through human intervention versus IVR, and the another important thing that we really figure out is, like, you figure out a trusted partner who has the knack of understanding your business, has done several implementations, or can do a very good job at it, right, before you start implementing it internally, right? Let me try to move on to my next segment, and it is specifically from the perspective of MVP, Chris. So you have been MVP on customer service. When did you achieve your MVP status? Is it in the current year, last?
Yeah, it's not long. It feels like a long time just from working with the product, but it was not this February, the February before. So what's that? February 2025. And the way it came about then was I've been aware of MVPs, and Tom Arbuthnot's my favourite MVP. He'll like me for saying that, and know him really well. And he's been, that for Teams really right from the start, and a wealth of knowledge really on the platform and the whole ecosystem, which is a heck of a thing that he manages to do. And there's lots and lots of MVPs that I've got to know and gone to events and conferences and listened to them and learnt from them and so on and so forth. And I never really thought about myself as an MVP, to be honest. And the way that it happened was that Marcus Schmidt, who's one of the go-to-market kind of leaders for contact center, I'd been doing all of this good stuff around the product. And I think he asked me on message, like, if I was an MVP. And I said, no, I'm not. And he said, well, do you want to be? And I said, well, I don't know really. And about 5 minutes later, he'd done a nomination. So that came through to my personal Gmail. And then I looked at what you needed to do. But actually, before that, I had a conversation with Tom Arbuthnot, and I'd had a conversation with someone from another partner and asked what was involved to try and understand, like, what you actually do. So you've got to provide evidence of how you contribute to the community, basically. In a nutshell, that is it. And that can take a number of, that can shape and form however you like. And there's no formula for it, although people put guides out on becoming an MVP. And I think genuinely anyone in the space, whether they're from a commercial through to super technical through to service leader or whatever, they can put themselves in the position of applying for MVP if they want. There is a commitment there, though. I suppose you got to make a judgment as to whether you want to be an MVP. And really, for me, it's not a challenge because it's what I do anyway, and it's what I love. I don't spend my time during the working day doing it, though, although I'm involved in the ecosystem and I might be thinking about it. But in my own time, I then spend the time writing blog articles, doing a video, doing whatever I do, and then going to events and speaking. And I never used to do that. And I'm not invited to loads of things. I'm invited to podcasts like this, though, which is great. And you don't have to do that public speaking bit. You can do what you like. If you are technical and you don't want to speak in front of audiences, then don't. Then write technically, have a really active blog, share things on LinkedIn, and in that way you're adding value. It's all about adding value. So I did the application and you then submit it. So up to 20, I think, bits of evidence. And it's important to collate that. That's the hard thing. As you do things, as you're going along, you think, well, that LinkedIn post, and I created that, got traction and people are interested in asking about it. Okay, so save the link to that. Or you write a blog, save the link to that. You speak somewhere or you do something internal that's helping and mentoring people. Then make it, again, write that in a whatever, Word document, spreadsheet, whatever to do, whatever you want to do. Because then when you come to do the submission, you've got evidence that you can go, that was really impactful, that wasn't so much. And you don't have to submit 20 bits of evidence. You choose the most impactful that there are. So that could be 5, it could be 10 things. But I did this thing, I spoke at this conference and there were 250 people. And as a result, X, Y, and Z happened. Then that's what you submit. But then you submit it, and then you've got this time when you're going, oh, what's going to happen now? Like, am I going to get it? Am I not going to get it? And it's not necessarily guaranteed that you get it, and you've got to be kind of open and honest with yourself about that. You've applied for it, but you might not quite get it the first time. You'll probably get it the second time if you learn from why you didn't get it the first time. And so you've got like a 3-month window, I think it is, like 90 days that they review it and look at that. And they possibly reach out within the network as well, maybe people that you are connected with, to understand who you are, particularly if you're a new MVP, to understand what the impact is that you've had and so on and so forth. And then, like on the 1st of February, like an email just dropped in. And I was like, it was early in the morning, and I was like, that's good news for today. And you go from there. And there's an onboarding process that is run by Microsoft that is excellent. And there are various calls you can join, and then you're opened up to a whole world of things in terms of opportunities and sharing of knowledge and working with product group and stuff, and getting to the MVP summit if you want to go, or attending virtually if you don't want to go and stuff. I think the main benefit for me has just been meeting amazing people. I could talk for 20 minutes about those. I'm gonna name drop one, which is Peter Reuter. He's like me. He's a Dynamics CCaaS guy. He works for Capgemini out of the Netherlands, and I met him in person then at the MVP summit, and he's been a great friend, and lots of other people since. And we all try and support each other and help when there's challenges or whatever. So it's like having an extension of your colleagues at work. And you can go meet and travel, or if you don't want to, you don't. You can always have Teams calls and WhatsApp chats and stuff. So but
it's really lovely, the MVP community that Microsoft has built. I've got a very fortunate chance to speak to few of you, right? And anybody I'm talking to or reaching out, they're so humble, first of all, and second, you will feel like you have been talking to them for years and years. That is the kind of information dissemination that happens, right? They don't keep it to themselves, and which is very great in terms of the community that Microsoft has created. Thank you so much, Chris. I think this is a really lovely information on MVP, and
You're welcome.
I think the audience, and specifically all the aspirant MVPs out there, have got a fair bit of idea as to how to move to the next step, right? Basically,
Sure.
if they really want to go the MVP route, because it's tons of work. What I mean, right?
It's a benefit to the community. It's a benefit to Microsoft. It's a benefit to clients,
Absolutely.
really, and just how you're working. But it's a benefit to you. It's just something to be proud of. I think that you are a contributor and you get a little bit of recognition. Really, it's not so much about having the badge to be able to get a new job or anything. I don't think it's that. I hope it's not. I hope it's not anyway. I don't think that's not the ethos behind it.
True.
And I maybe didn't understand that for a few years and looked at it skeptically, I suppose, from the outside. And then, there is lots of competition in the marketplace from lots of partners, and we're all trying to run businesses and make money, and we're all trying to help customers. Okay, and Microsoft's trying to help customers and empower people. But by sharing knowledge throughout that community and across to the partners, and like this podcast, then, partners can and individuals can learn, and then they can succeed. And we don't generally butt up heads against each other. There's lots of opportunity in the market, and it's just important that we all support and help each other. We will make the difference in terms of the adoption of AI. We will make the difference with customers. If we don't do this well, then things will not go the way that we want them to go. And I don't mean the threat of AI. I just mean we need to help empower, organizations and individuals. We have our own private, kind of challenge of using AI in our own lives, but take that into the workplace, and we need to provide help.
Amazing. I think it's just a bigger responsibility in nutshell if we just say it. Everything else, whether it's business, whether it's a different job or better job, or it is other things, it's just a byproduct of this beautiful community. But thank you so much for sharing that, Chris.
You're welcome.
I would like to move on now to our rapid fire segment, which is I'll share a few questions, and if you can answer them within 15-20 seconds, that would be great. Usually we started with 1 or 2 syllables, but that didn't really cut it. So it's 15-20 seconds. If that is the format. So my first one is Teams phone or Dynamics 365 contact center. Which are you more passionate about?
Dynamics 365 contact center.
The most overhyped thing in the customer experienced world right now.
Most overhyped thing. Oh, it's difficult. Is just AI generally is like we're talking about AI all the time, and we're not talking about the outcomes really. Yeah. So AI is the solution. It's not. It's just
Trust
a tool.
me, I have asked this question almost 50% of the time, and the answer that I've got is AI. Yeah,
it's massively overhyped.
The one piece of the old telephony world that you genuinely miss.
Where do we start in a quick fire? That's a crazy question to ask me. I miss the Ericsson XE10 telephone exchange. I can still think in terms of the code in my head. Even now, Suave is like to add and remove a subscriber. I can see it in my head, like the code, and I can see the infrastructure. Yeah, the Ericsson switch, which is how I ended up here today.
No, it's quite interesting, right? Telecom itself is a very different vertical, right? And then the CTI integrations over the period of time has grown so stable, and it just looks like a piece of cake. You just put a URL there in ACS and then it's connected, right? But there is back-end tech that is happening that is actually, converting these MAPI protocols to JSON and whatnot.
Yeah, there's still all the infrastructure that I built is still in place. There's next generation switching, NGS switching. BT up the 21CN network that I was working on as I moved to Germany. But that switching network and carrier grade transmission network is still out there. Whether it's Ericsson, it's Nortel, it's Nokia, or whatever platform, it still underpins the connectivity that lots of us use, and in data centers and pop servers and stuff like that. So yeah, it's still there. It's just a lot of people don't know about it. But hence my little club that I've started on LinkedIn. For people who've been around for a while and gone from traditional to SaaS, really, that's what it's about. Having that knowledge and expertise, like you might think, well, that first part of my career is not relevant anymore, and it's far more relevant than it ever was, because we're still moving people from traditional to modern, understanding the infrastructure and signaling and stuff like that, even if you never talk about it, is always there in the back of your mind.
Absolutely. So one last question, and then we are done. The last question is, one skill every modern work expert should start learning today.
Oh, if you're going to start, I think, so we've talked, there's Copilot everywhere, isn't there? Like absolutely everywhere, in all different shapes and forms. And we've got consolidation of that coming with a proposed super app, and we know there's big change coming at Microsoft. But I think learning to use Copilot Studio, which is, kind of low code, no code, it's relatively easy to step into that as a skill to just be able to develop a bot yourself. You could use Agent Builder and do something absolutely no code, and that's like an initial step. But in the consultative world and like being able to build something that's tangibly going to help a customer, then take that scenario. You can use Copilot to generate scenarios, but then try and build an agent, that's maybe connecting things, data sources, and producing an outcome based on inputs. And so on and so forth. Like that to me feels like computer programming in 1979, which is how I started on a Tandy TRS-80 learning basic and then machine code. Like it's just a logical way of building things. So whether you're an engineer or not, I don't think you need to be. I think you just need to be creative.
True.
That's, creative people will really flourish in this current environment.
Thank you so much, Chris. I think it has been a
Okay.
wonderful time. And
You're welcome.
just to summarize, I am much more learned. And I think with the experience that you got, the things that you have shared, of course, there has been a lot of things that I would have loved to dig deeper. But
Yeah.
because of the time format and podcast format, we were not able to dive a little deeper. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh, no, you're welcome. Thank you very much for inviting me. I've loved it. It's been a really interesting conversation.
Sure. Cheers, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks.